First interview. I entered it with a moderate estimate of my own consequence, and yet there I was to talk with and even to advise the head man of our great nation. He was stretched out on the sofa reading, his legs reaching into different parts of the room. The President began to rise and continued to rise until he stood over me. There was not the slightest shadow of embarrassment from the very first moment. I was never more quickly or more completely put at ease in the presence of a great man than in that of Mr. Abraham Lincoln.
I am so glad to see you. I knew you. I've read about you. In fact, Mr. Seward has told me all about you. I am glad to see you. Please make yourself comfortable.
Thank you, sir. Now, we are grateful for your recent issuance of the order of retaliation for Confederate abuses of black prisoners. Although, allow me to say that it was quite a time in coming, Mr. President.
Well, I am aware, Mr. Douglas, that there are those, present company included, who believe that I have been tardy, even hesitant to make decisions about emancipation or the employment of colored troops. But I must say, the country needed some talking up to on that point. I hesitated, but I would not institute a policy that I did not believe the country was yet ready for. There had to be some preparatory work done. Mr. Douglas, remember that the noble, loyal, patriotic performance of colored troops at Fort Wagner, Milliken's Bend, Port Hudson were recent events. And they had to be accomplished to bring us to the present moment. I think, so far as the order of retaliation goes, the rebels themselves will stop this barbarous warfare. Less evil would have been done if retaliation had not been resorted to.
Mr. President, I am assisting to raise colored troops. Now, several months before, I was very successful in getting men to enlist. But now it is not so easy to induce colored men to join the service because there is a feeling among them that the government does not deal fairly with them.
Would you state the particulars then, Mr. Douglas?
Well, sir, first, that the colored soldiers ought to receive the same wages as are paid to the white soldiers. And second, when they perform great and uncommon service on the battlefield, they should be rewarded with distinction and promotion, just as white soldiers are rewarded for like services.
Well, sir, the employment of colored troops at all was a great gain to the colored people. The measure would not have been accepted had it been introduced earlier in the war. The wisdom of making colored men soldiers was doubted yet. The fact that they did not receive the same pay seemed a necessary concession for making soldiers of colored men at all. Ultimately, they will receive the same pay. On your second point regarding promotion, I want to say that I will sign any commission to a colored man, a colored soldier, that is commended to me by my Secretary of War. Mr. Douglas, I admit my concern for a popular backlash has caused me to be somewhat slow in decision making, and as is the case here, too slow for your tastes. However, I think the charge that I vacillate cannot be sustained at all. In fact, I do not believe any man could say that once I have taken a position, I have contradicted it or retracted it.
And he would not vacillate. For me, was the best thing Mr. Lincoln had to say, that whoever else might abandon his anti-slavery policy, President Lincoln would stand firm to his. Because of his assurance, I left that meeting more certain than ever that slavery would not survive the war, and that the country would survive both slavery and the war. Though I was not entirely satisfied with his views, I was so well satisfied with the man and with the educating tendency of the conflict that I determined to go on with the recruiting. I left in the full belief that the true course to the black man's freedom and citizenship was over the battlefield, and that my business was to get every black man I could into the Union armies.